So when you're taking the windows out, you want to make sure if you have any pets like dogs or cats to put them into another room and lock the door, because dogs have a way of getting under your feet when you're doing something like that, and that could be distracting or dangerous. So make sure you put the pets into their kennel or into another room where you can lock the door. Also, be sure to tell your children what you're doing. Show them that you're taking down a window, and they should be careful not to walk over there and fall through or roughhouse in that area and potentially have a problem. So windows should be known as greenhouses for mold. So it thrives in places like windows or places that have moisture and light. I never opened the windows in the kitchen on this side of the room, so I barely even looked at them. So when I pulled down the curtains and took a look, this is what I found. So this was the worst windows in the house. So I took these out and I realized that a great deal of mold was found all in these weather strips. I don't know what you want to call them, these fabric carpet-like strips. It has these fibers that I guess exist to insulate the window. Now whoever manufactures windows couldn't create something better for growing mold if they tried than with these fiber strips. These things are like little mold farms that you can put into your window just to grow mold out of. You couldn't get something better if your goal was to have your whole house infected with black mold than to put carpet all around your windows. So all the mold seems to be generating from these fiber strips, and they spread throughout the window. And you can clean the whole window off, but it will keep on coming back because they hide all in these fibers here. You can't completely clean these fibers without removing them. And once you remove them, you just want to throw them away. There's no need for these in the window. They're going to look back and say, this was one of the biggest mistakes to put in windows. So all of these need to come off. Now, if you had mold come into your house and it was all in the windows and you called in a professional, the corrupt establishment will send one of their people over to tell you that you need to remove all the windows and replace them. So obviously, it's a lot cheaper to remove one of these windows a day, spend about 15 or 20 minutes removing these things, clean the window and install it back into place. Otherwise, the mold will continue to come back again and again and again. I have quite a few windows in the house, and I got them all done within a few weeks. It will take a little while to get used to it, but after you do one or two, you will get the hang of it and it will go a lot quicker. Alright, so when you get going on this, it's really not that bad. But what you will need to get is a straight razor. They sell them at any hardware store, and make sure you get extra razors. So this is a good model to get like this, the more durable ones. Now the key to this is to change the razor very often. These fiber strips will make the razor dull, so get used to changing the razor if you want it to go real fast. The razors are also known to break off, so make sure you get and wear a pair of safety glasses while you use the razor to remove these fiber strips, so you will not get a shard in your eye. So while you're removing these, do not forget to have a mask on. At least a bandana around your face that you could wash at the end of every day with ammonia to make sure that you get all the mold particles dead. So when you're doing this, you always want to make sure that you put the flat side down. You want to have this part up and the flat side down when you're removing these here. And oftentimes these could pinch your hand right here. Right in there. And you can see that I got myself here, and this could really hurt. So you want to be real careful that you take your time with this. But lean it up against the wall like this. Okay? And then hold on to it. Like put your knee against the bottom of it and hold the top the best you can. And when you're cutting down, make sure that your knee's not down here where it could get cut. Or make sure that your hand's not held underneath it. You want to put one hand over, like this, holding it. And then you cut down about 1 inch at a time here. But what you're going to do is you're going to take a razor blade, get a sharp razor knife like this, okay? And you're going to take this and you're going to press it real hard and do about like 1 inch or 2 down. And you're going to cut it a bunch of times, 4 or 5 times. And then you're going to use this to kind of dig around the sides and pry up the piece of plastic that holds this in. So you're going to cut in there and then use this to kind of pry it out, to dig it out. So once you have a piece of this plastic exposed, it's kind of a rigid piece of plastic here. You want to take something like needle nose pliers. And you want to pull it down as a unit. Otherwise it just snaps off because you don't want it to break. So you just pull it down like 1 inch at a time and then re-grip close to it. So pull it down like a couple inches, 1 inch, and then let go and re-grip back up the top. Because if it breaks, you're going to have to take out the knife and then work to pull it out again. So you see that white plastic rubber band fits into that groove there. And up here, it's kind of like fit in there all the way to the top. So you're going to have to kind of cut in there until part of it's exposed. Then like I said, you take your razor knife and you dig in there until you can kind of get around it and pull it up. And then you pull it down a little at a time. So I already cleaned this whole window. But you see where all the mold hides underneath this thing. And only if it's a little bit, it's going to grow and expand, because that's what mold does. It's like a plant and it grows and it spreads out. So get rid of these things. Alright, so you see that I got part of it hanging down there. But you see what's inside there? There's another piece of plastic. Alright, so I got that piece out, and then I'm trying to get this piece out. And then I cut that. And I want to pull this out along with the bottom part. So it comes out as a unit. I'm grabbing hold of both of them. So then I can grab hold of both sides of that and get it to come out as a unit. You see how it's about a 1/2 inch down? So I want to re-grip up top, pull it down another inch or 1/2 inch, then re-grip at the top. Because if I want to rush it and yank it all the way down, I'll just break. So just take it down 1 inch at a time. It's so much quicker to do it like that. And you re-grip like that. Just a little bit at a time. They get kind of brittle when they get older too. Alright, so I just removed that one. And they got a little bit chewed up due to the razor knife, but you're not going to see that. And that's too bad. But you see how this is exposed right here? A little piece of rubber right there. So real easily you could just go ahead and take your pair of pliers and grab it from right there to remove this one, instead of digging through there with your razor blade again. So that was easy to pull out with the needle nose plier. So on this window right here, you got the metal peg here, which is kind of covering the fabric lining here, the fabric insulator thing here. So that's going to be kind of hard to cut. So I'm going to cut from this side, and this side is flat, and that side is going to be easier to get at with a razor knife, and then pry that rubber part out and get those out. So I just removed this side piece right here. So what's the next part to do but this right here? So I've opened up that. So I should be able to just grab it right here and pull it down. And grab it with the pliers right here and pull it down. So I won't have to cut with the razor. So I turned the window over so you could see better. But I pulled both of these strips all the way down, but they broke off right here. And if you look closely, it's because there's a metal prong right here that holds it in. So that sucks, but go ahead and take your razor blade and cut from the top here and remove these two pieces right here. So I'm going to turn this window upside down. This is the part that goes down, and you could often find these rubber insulation strips too. And they get filled with mold and stuff like that. So just get rid of those by sliding it out. And basically what this does is over time, it'll get all over your window, all over your wall, all over your bed, everything. So you want to get rid of these things. So it might sound really obvious, but when you start turning the window on every side here to remove these felt things, and you got a bunch of windows to do, you just want to be real careful that you handle the windows correctly so you don't end up dropping them and breaking them. So when you go to move the window, just make sure the flat side is down and the lock or the locks are facing up there. Alright, you want to take out a screwdriver and remove this lock by taking out these two screws. Alright, so you see what's hiding underneath this here. So you take the lock and submerge it in the CLR solution. And what works good is to use a toothbrush. And the toothbrush can fit into every part of the lock. Make sure to get underneath it real well and to open it up and get the lock part and every part of the lock. So you want to use your screwdriver to try to get into all the crevices all the way around the window as much as you can. And if you can't reach there, like in here, it's going to be kind of hard to reach. You just go ahead and take your spray bottle and you spray into the cracks and everything that you cannot reach. And when you go to put the lock back on, remember that this side of the lock is going to face you. On the inside, it has this ledge for lifting the window. Then you want to spray down the corner and then take the flathead screwdriver and push all the way up around here. All right, here's the window lock on the upper outside window. It has the lock part that the hook hooks into. All right, that's what it looks like when it comes out, and that is what was underneath it. So like everything else, you want to take the rear window lock and clean it off in the CLR solution using a toothbrush. There's going to be 2 or 3 fiber strips on the window frame. And one's going to be on the inside of this right here. And then 2 are going to be up here, along here, and right over here. So you do not want to try to attempt to do this while the window's out, because it's very easy to fall through. If you can imagine both of these not in here, and you up on a ladder or a step stool going to take these out. I would not recommend doing that. So let's do this window right here. So I already removed this one here, but to give you an idea of how I did it, this screen would have to be removed first so I could kind of lean over to see. With the screen out, I can carefully lean through the window, keeping my waist against this part. I don't want to lean over too much where I could fall out, especially if it's a high window. So I'm leaning out, keeping my waist against the window frame, and I can easily see this, enough to cut and remove this strip here. Now for the top ones. I'm going to have to get on that step stool in order to reach the top one. So you want to bring the top windows down as far as they go. That way you have some support when you get up on your step stool. And before I get started, I'm going to use the ammonia solution and really spray this down. If you do not do this, the fibers will come off this stuff like dandelion fluff and get all over your window and all over your house. So make sure to spray the whole thing down. I am trying to put the tip of the knife right underneath that and bring it across here. But it is very hard from this position to see where the rubber part of the strip is in order to pry it out. So this one is a little bit of a challenge. So if you have the ability, you may want to use a ladder. And then after removing the strip on the window frame, you will spray the whole window down again to kill any particles that came off of the window strip. Now technically you should remove the fabric strips on the window frame first. However, if you find the ones on the window frame are difficult, you might want to get some practice on the windows that you could put on the floor and get real close to. And get some practice on removing these fiber strips, because it's a little challenging leaning into the window with your arm bent trying to remove the fiber strip at an awkward angle. But after you get a few windows done and are used to removing the fiber strips, the ones on the window frame will be easier. Alright, so I'm cutting out this top inside strip here. I have already sprayed it down with the ammonia solution. So what I'm doing is taking a razor knife and I'm cutting across the whole fiber strip. And as you do this, you want to take your time. You hold the knife steady and just easily cut along the whole fiber strip. And you'll see parts of it fall down. You'll see the fibers start to fall down. As you get more experience doing this, you'll be able to do it pretty easy. But if they're giving you problems, just go ahead and try to cut out what you can. So my goal is to cut out as much of these fibers as I can. And sometimes you'll cut into the rubber part of it and it'll just hang down and you'll be able to remove the whole thing pretty easily. But you want to be careful not to cut the window frame. The window frame that these things sit in is just thin plastic. So it's real easy to cut through it. So you want to be careful that you don't cut all the way through there. So I've cut across the whole fiber strip until a piece of the rubber fell down. So I've managed to cut part of the rubber strip out so you could feel it giving way at a certain place, or it falls down a little bit. So you take your needle nose pliers and you pull it the rest of the way out. Now you will get better at this as you get more practice. But if you have the ability to use a ladder, go ahead and cut them from the outside. But once you get more practice removing them from all the windows, it'll be pretty easy to do. And the key thing is safety. You don't want to overwhelm yourself and try to rush through this. And if you make it a project to remove these strips one window at a time, you're preventing the mold from returning on that window. What mold will do is that it will build up and spread throughout your entire house so that the spores become what you breathe. So that's why I said clean the entire house first and then go back and do things like the windows. But the worst thing to do is to let the mold just grow throughout the whole house so that the spores are all in the air. And that is what causes you and your family to be sick. So the process of removing mold from your house is going to seem to be ongoing for a little while. The mold will most frequently come back on the windows. And most often, it is going to grow back around the edges of the glass where you'll see these rubber gaskets. So just get used to cleaning the windows more often using the CLR solution and keeping on top of any mold that might grow back. So let's talk about removing some of those rubber gaskets now. Alright, so the black mold came back on one of the windows. I'm going to show you that in a second. I cleaned the whole house, and then my daughter was playing by the window and she says, there are little flies around here, Dad. So I walked over there and they were called black mold flies, like 5 or 6 of them. And I looked and all the mold was coming back all around this window, all around the corners of the window. And I usually have the curtains pulled on it. And you can see this is what was around the corners of the window where they have like a rubber molding. So you see this rubber piece right here. And black mold is all behind this. And it was all around the corners of the window. You can see it was like that. So I'm going to remove these rubber things. So you could see this flap of rubber molding along the left side of the window. So I cut that out. So that was the only way I could access that, is by cutting the top part out, and it was all behind it. So I think there's enough rubber in there to hold this window in. But this is what is behind the rubber that I cut out. So I'm cutting the towel into little pieces like this. So you could see that black mold there. You just want to go ahead and take a screwdriver, kind of a thin screwdriver, wrap a towel around it, and then go into the grooves. And this is a double pane glass. I got one piece of glass on the inside and another piece of glass on the outside. And I also noticed there's that piece of rubber on the outside that also looks like there's mold growing behind it, like in the corners. So I'm going to have to cut that out too, otherwise the black mold is going to continuously come out of there. Alright, so after lifting up that strip here, cutting it off, this was filled with black mold. Like I told you before, it starts off green and then turns black. So if you could cut underneath it with one hand while pulling up with a needle nose plier with the other, it comes up a lot easier. And you can cut it off in one neat strip. You kind of run, you get kind of flat and run it along like that, like real flat. While lifting it up, it comes off almost like one strip here. And keep on spraying it with that CLR until you make sure no more mold's coming back. I don't even think that you need to put anything in there. It has the rubber that's in there deep, and as long as you get the worst of it out and keep on spraying it, I think you could get it out the window. And I think there's enough rubber left in there to hold the window in real securely. I don't think you need that extra crap. This is after removing the rubber gasket, and the mold is staying off, and it's about 3 months later. And this is the outside. Once again, all that mold is gone. And I just continue to spray it down with CLR to make sure everything is dead out there and no mold grows back. Alright, last I'm going to talk about removing the rubber gaskets from the windows you could take out. Now these windows were on either side of that large picture window, and I saw the mold coming back on these windows the worst. So the mold was the worst in the front windows here. It's a lot better to remove these rubber stripping pieces than to replace the whole window. That's how I looked at it. Each window has 2 sections, so I had 4 of these windows to do, and there was like 4 of these strips on each side to do. So it was like 32 strips I had to cut out and clean behind. So it took me like an hour or 2, and the windows went back in fine. The piece of glass still held in there good, and I got all the mold out of there. So that's a lot better than having to replace 2 windows. In my case, these in the front were the worst here. So you can see all this mold growing in back of these rubber stripping pieces. The best thing to do is just to make sure you have a good straight razor knife and get plenty of these razors. You don't want to use the same dull razor over and over and over again. It makes it a lot easier, it's a lot neater work to keep on changing the razor. The job will go twice as fast if you change the razor every strip. Whenever it gets hard to cut, you go ahead and you change the razor. Alright, so when cutting this, you want to go in kind of like at a diagonal, so you can cut more of the rubber piece that's underneath the plastic piece, the plastic frame. And you want to do 2 or 3 cuts, and then you can pull it out with a pair of needle nose pliers, and it comes out pretty easy. As long as you keep on changing that razor, it'll be the best. You cut away from yourself, and you probably do 2 or 3 cuts with a new razor, and the whole strip will come out. And of course, have the CLR spray right there so you could spray as you remove the strips. And then you just go ahead, you take a towel and you wrap it around a screwdriver or a razor blade, and you go inside that indent that you just remove the rubber stripping from, and make sure you get the mold out of there as you go around. You want to clean as you go. Alright, it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing from this angle, but the best thing to do is to try to hold the window on your lap and then cut away from you. You don't want to take the razor and cut towards yourself or toward your knee. You want to cut away from yourself so it's the safest. And just by changing the razor a lot will make it go a lot easier. Accidents will happen if you start struggling with a dull knife. So change the razor twice every strip if you need to. And just have your needle nose pliers there that will pull out the stripping as you go along. So you want to take all the locks out, and you'll notice this rubber gasket, this black rubber gasket underneath it. Now at first, I just used a cleaner and a screwdriver with a towel and went underneath the gasket to get all the mold out that I could. However, I ended up having to take a razor blade and cutting off this black gasket completely. And that was the only way to get the mold fully out of the window. This is one of the newer windows in the house. I had it installed about 2015, I believe. So it's about 3 years old. So we will discuss one of these newer windows. You pull here and you pull here at the same time, and then the window slides forward. The window falls down. And you'll see that this window is operated with strings connected to a screw on this side and on this side. So you want to just go ahead and take these out. And the window's still kind of resting here. You take out this screw. But just make sure that you don't drop the window while you're taking these strings out. So I'm just going to pick it up so it's flat, and then pick up one side so it's higher than the other, and that comes out like that. So when you take the window out, you take a look at it, and you basically remove every part that you can. Every part that you see a screw at, you want to go ahead and take it off. So you want to spray and clean all behind here. There's a screw here to take off this. You unscrew this and this piece comes off and you clean behind there. So you take this piece out and you want to soak that in the CLR solution. Of course, the window latch comes off and you can see all the mold that was hiding underneath that. And you want to remove the other window latch as well. And again, you want to soak that in the CLR solution. Now, as I was examining this window, I saw that there was mold all around the window glass. However, I do not believe these things come off. I was able to lift up on this plastic gasket and then use a screwdriver and a towel to clean underneath there. I took a look at this and I could not figure out how to take these things off. I don't think you could take them off. So I used one screwdriver to pick up a little bit as a lever, and I used another with a towel to clean underneath. And I went all around the perimeter of the glass. And if it is ever hard to get into an area, you just use the spray bottle with the stream and you hit that area very well. Alright, we have both windows out and I'm looking at the window frame, and you want to take out these pieces. I had to pry them out with 2 screwdrivers and make sure that there was no mold hiding behind it. Now what I found on the window frame were these things, and to me they appear like custom designed mold traps. So you can see trapped within all these fibers you got mold particles growing and they're spreading down the window frame. So after you remove those fabric squares on both sides of the window, you can also take these out. If you look inside of them, it's like a soft foam material, and you don't need these on the window. So kind of like the fabric strips, they easily come out with a pair of needle nose pliers. Alright, underneath the fabric squares, there are the pieces of the window that come out easily. You just take a pair of needle nose pliers and you pull from the top down and they come out. And if you have mold on the window, it would be hiding all behind that. You can see it all at the bottom there. Now you're looking at the area where the fabric square was removed. The bottom sheath has been taken out, and now I'm going to take out the top sheath as well. So like I said before, it is best to take out one side, clean that one side, and then reinstall it so that you can always refer to the other side if you get confused or forget where a piece goes. You can always look at the other side and see where it fit in. I'm going to put the window back in now. So I'm going to put the ropes, so they're up front here like this and this. And if you noticed, the peg is like that. So you kind of angle it so that one side is higher, and you kind of get into the groove there, and then that'll sit in there like that. So on this window, there is not a window lift that this fits into. It just fits inside the groove, which is a little bit easier. And then you attach the strings onto the window using this metal piece that goes against the window in this direction. Alright, so the window is all the way down here like this. So if you could pick it up so that it's like that, it's securely in the window frame. So it's easier to let go and put this in here. Alright, so that's tight in there. Okay, once the strings have been attached to the window, I'm going to take the window off the window ledge and lower it down so that the strings are completely straight, because I do not want to get them tangled up. And then you just go ahead and pick it up, and then you got to close both of them like that. Now watch this. It falls down. So you just go ahead and you press down the top a little bit, and then it goes up into place. It's like one of those roller blinds. You kind of have to pull down for a minute and then it rolls right up. Alright, same with the other one. It helps to put the top side on the window ledge here. And that allows you to screw the window strings in on that side and that side. However, on this model, when you go to fold the window back in, it gets caught on that right there. Okay, as you see, you got a string in the front here and here. So all you do is bring the window up so it's flat, and then that will allow it to get past that part right there. Then you want to lower it so that the strings are both straight. You don't want them tangled up. And then you can raise the window back into place. Okay, the last thing I want to mention is that there are these hollow rubber tubes in this model. And like they're the same as any gasket. They're supposed to provide insulation and you don't need them. So you just take your razor and you cut along the top and the bottom of the rubber gasket. And then use needle nose pliers to pull it down. Then you could go back and neaten it up, cutting off any excess rubber that remains. And as you can see, there is black mold on the end of this. And if I left that in there, that would spread throughout the whole window, and the whole window will be covered with black mold by the end of the summer. So those need to come off. I found another one of these rubber gaskets on the bottom of the top window. Same as the other one. You cut along the top and bottom, and they come out pretty easily. The window fits in the same with or without these rubber gaskets. So the bathroom should be clean the same as the kitchen. I don't think I need to go over that for too much longer. You use the CLR spray on most things in the bathroom. The one thing I do want to discuss is the vent fans and how to remove these and clean these. The best thing to do is to first turn on the fan and the light, and then go down to the fuse box, then shut off the appropriate fuse. Then by going back upstairs to the bathroom, if you see and hear the vent fan and light are off, there's no power going to that unit. And then just turn the lights off for safety, so nobody turns on a fuse while you're working on it. Since you have no electricity going to the bathroom, it'll be smart to bring a light in. Just run an extension cord in from another room, and just make sure that extension cord is out of your way and is not going to be placed in the middle of the bathroom floor where you're working so that you could trip over it. So I think this is a common design for vent fans. So to remove these, you just pull down on either end, and the bottom of the vent fan lowers down like this. Then by getting on your step ladder, you can take a look and you can see these prongs are holding it in. So you just press the prongs together, and that releases them from the hooks. So you will first do the side closest to the electrical cords and leave the other side hooked in while you unplug these. So one is for the ventilation fan and the other is for the light. Then take down the other prongs by pushing them together and unlatching them from the hooks. The light cover will come off easily. Just find a groove and pry it up easily. You will want to remove the light bulbs so that you can clean inside that area. And just be careful of the electrical wires while you are spraying this down. So use the CLR solution to spray between the vents. And then use a butter knife wrapped in a thin towel. I used a t-shirt that I cut up. That seems to work well. And you just clean inside all these vents. Then you probably want to turn the unit around and spray and clean the other side of the vent to make sure you get all of the mold out of the unit. You want to spray the CLR solution onto the towel and then wipe everything off. Then you can wipe down the inside area where the light bulbs fit in. Careful not to damage any of the electrical components by spraying the solution directly into the wires or electrical parts of the fan. So make sure you also clean the light bulbs. Spray the solution onto a towel and then wipe the light bulbs down carefully. Same thing with the light bulb cover here. And you don't want to forget the electrical cord. And then you will want to set that on a table to dry. And while that's drying, you will want to clean the inside of the unit. So spray the CLR solution onto a towel and wipe down the inner box. Be careful not to spray the solution directly onto this motor that you can see right in the middle, because you don't want to damage that by getting too much water on that. So like anything else, spray the solution onto a towel and wipe that down carefully. Then if you look up where I'm shining the flashlight, you'll see the fan. This is the part that the motor spins and will pull all the air up and sends it up to the exhaust area. What works best on cleaning that will be a screwdriver. So wrap a towel around a screwdriver, spray it down, and then use that to clean in between the grooves on the fan. After you've cleaned that, you're ready to reinstall the fan. And these prongs fit back in easily like this. All you have to do is run one of the prongs through the hook right here and it will grab onto the circular part. So first you'll attach the prongs on the far side away from the wires so that it will be easier to plug this back in. And after you do that, make sure both of them are in there securely. And then attach the remaining prongs by pushing them together and then letting them open in between the hooks. And it catches on. And then by pressing it up, the whole unit raises back up into place.